Good to go.
Fantastic. A call to order the meeting of the City of Monona Landmarks Commission for Wednesday, June 14th. Thor, you've got the roll taken there. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, April 12th?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. Are there any changes that people would like to see? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as written? Say aye.
Aye.
Fantastic. All right. We don't have, do we have any appearances for tonight, Thor?
We do not.
Do not. And there's, I thought there was something under unfinished business, but for some reason I'm not seeing it on my document. Or did we fail to add the?
No, I wonder if you're looking at an old
Yeah, I have it.
the draft version that I sent you
Oh,
for the changes.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Well, I have it committed to memory, and I'll find that version. I do know that the item that we snuck into the old business or the unfinished business was just sort of a follow-up on our conversations so far about land acknowledgements. And as you can see in the minutes, when we last spoke about this, there was a suggestion that I take it to council and have council vote on it. You may also remember that when the idea was first introduced that we do a land acknowledgement, I expressed a concern that we must be careful in the way we do it. So I would like to circle back with this group and let you know that I'm not comfortable bringing the idea of a land acknowledgement to council. And the reason is because since our last meeting together, I've done some research and there seems to be a growing number of voices coming from the Native community that are speaking out against land acknowledgements because their concern is that these may be more for the, let me just say it, more for the benefit of white people than Native people. And they could be harmful in that they could give false impressions that something is actually being done to help Native populations. Also, it's possible that this is an icky topic, isn't it? It's also possible that, and some of the things that I've read also suggest that it just sort of makes white people feel good about themselves. So I'm not here to say that those are my beliefs. I do understand those beliefs though. And this is, I'm bringing to you those perspectives from some of the articles that I've read. And even just a quick Google search comes up with some articles that have been featured on Wisconsin Public Radio, Public Television, so some reputable sources. And that's kind of where I'm landing on it. Now, that said, I believe that when we brought up the idea of land acknowledgements, it was done in the best of intentions with a sincere desire to align ourselves with the right side of history and the future and to move forward in a positive way. So I'm not saying that this cannot be done. In fact, I would really love to see this body find a way to shine a more of a positive, well, of course, positive, but just to perhaps find ways to really include even more than we already do, those places of Monona that are of Native significance and historical value. I would love to find ways to do that. And if this body would like to adopt an acknowledgement, which is very specific to the work that we do, I would wholeheartedly endorse that. Something about as this body responsible for, you know, as this body who is, you know, dedicated to, you know, preserving and helping to preserve and bringing awareness to the historical areas of our community. We recognize this very important part of our history. But I don't think I am ready to bring this to City Council, and I'm not interested in having every city committee adopt, or the city as a whole adopt a land acknowledgement, or the same fears that I started with. And I am welcome and I am open to your comments and feedback.
I don't think that these are new conversations. These are certainly things that we discussed when I first presented some of the alternate language that especially Native organizations cite land acknowledgements and only acknowledge the past as a problem, that if there's no action being taken, it is a problem because it firmly sets everything in the past as if it's not happening anymore. I feel a little blindsided by this conversation. The agenda didn't specify what kind of conversation we were having about it. It sounded like it was going to be a continuation of the past conversation, which was about an item and city council. So I don't think we're in a position to have actually an informed discussion about it. If you wanted to forward some articles, Teresa, that you were reading that specifically
Be happy to do
gave
that.
you pause, because I mean, the way I read the minutes, the directions from the last Landmarks Commission meeting was that it would go to city council. So
Correct.
it doesn't say if that was a vote or not in the minutes. So
No, you're right, Brenda. I would be happy to forward those articles to you.
and I have read many of them, and I think we were trying to be cognizant of the fact that the Landmarks Commission in particular does oversee a number of mounds, or is not oversee, but is in part responsible for a number of Native American sites. So that it's not an empty statement, it's an acknowledgement that we recognize our duty to the past and the future. But regardless, I don't feel comfortable having any kind of discussion about what you just discussed, Teresa.
Okay. Apologies that the agenda was not clear. I can see how a person would read that and think, oh, we're just going to get a follow-up of what we talked about last night. Yeah. Is there still can someone remind me about the discussion we had last time about land acknowledgements and why it was recommended that this be taken to council as opposed to the Landmarks Commission just adopting our own?
I think it was discussed that it was that most of the other people or other organizations that had had that acknowledgement, it was coming from top down. So we felt it was appropriate that we should be doing the same coming. I think it was Richard that had said this, that was more of a top down request versus individual committees taking it upon themselves.
I think there were a few of us that had mentioned that it would be a top-down thing because, you know, most of the examples that we were given were from cities or municipalities or organizations and not individual commissions. I think also we thought about the wording of it and having the city not necessarily approve it, but like go through the wording and see what was most appropriate.
Is there the expectation that from folks here today, is there an expectation that we would be advising the city council of a practice our committee has adopted, or is the expectation that we would be advising and asking city council to take action?
I would look at it as more of a suggestion that if it could be brought forward, if, I don't know if it could come from our committee or does it have to come from an individual in the community that wishes that to be part of the
No.
city?
You had
So-
it right. No, you had it right the first time. Ideas come from committees. We vote them out of committee, we take them to the council for a final vote. But there certainly is a space on every city council agenda for a simple update of work that is happening in each committee. And I would be more than happy to advise the council of this conversation that we're having. And this conversation and potential action that we may undertake as a committee. I'm just wondering about the expectation of what the city council will do with that information. So I'm hearing that maybe a suggestion that other committees could consider the same. Again, I appreciate how thoughtful this body is being. And I would hope that all committees would also be as thoughtful, as opposed to just there being, instruction, go find an acknowledgement and recite it. And we don't want that to happen, right? So as for my action item, I'm hearing that I'll be sharing with you some of the articles that I've read. I'm also reaching out to just one person so far in the Native community, just to get perhaps some resources from them that I could share with this group as well. Is there any other action, something that I could do? All right, I'm good with that. All right, so that was the item we had under unfinished business. And then Laura, as far as new business moving forward, I believe it's in your wheelhouse there.
Sure. So next we've got a discussion of the potential Frostwoods Historic District. Rebecca had shared with me that the Frostwoods Homes Association did vote to move forward with the process to explore the creation of the historic district at the April meeting. It was a unanimous vote with at least 24 votes who were there at the meeting in person, plus more proxies who were not there in person. So next steps would be to submit a CLG grant letter of intent so that we can try and get funding to help that process. And that is due August 14th. So I'll be working on that over the next couple of months, and we'll have the commission review that letter of intent either at a July meeting, or we do have a meeting in August, which would be August 9th, but that doesn't leave a whole lot of time in between the meeting and when that letter of intent is due. So it might make sense to have that in July. And then the final application for CLG money is due in December. And our contacts at WHS Elizabeth Hilton and Jason Tisch, who presented at the Frostwoods event, will be kind of leading us through that process. And making sure that we, have everything we need for a strong application for the CLG application, and we'll take it from there. So in the meeting packet, I've included the kind of Frostwoods excerpt from the 2018 architectural inventory report that shows the neighborhood boundaries, the historic district boundaries, and the list of contributing and non-contributing homes. That list would be reassessed during the review process, and because some homes maybe would have lost contributing status if certain updates are made. But yeah, I don't think there's really a need for commission discussion today. We certainly can, if any other ideas, but really next step is for Doug and I to work on that letter of intent and share it with the commission.
So I just had one question about that.
Yeah.
I know that the initial map in the previous survey, which I understand is being redone, showed, had lines drawn outside of the Frostwoods Homes Association.
Mhm.
So they had included some additional streets, blocks, they went to the end of the block. And so is that something that we can make a recommendation on, or is that solely up to the survey? Would that happen just with the survey?
Yeah, I remember this question coming up at the educational event, didn't it? And I'm starting to remember what Jason and Elizabeth said, but I think there would be opportunity to kind of reevaluate the boundaries, I thought. Rebecca or Teresa, do you remember from that event?
Yeah, so I'm having a bad connection a little bit, but that would be up to the new person, the person writing the nomination and surveying the neighborhood. But I definitely think that we could have a say in what our actual boundaries are so that they're aware. But I do remember Elizabeth talking about there could be some homes just surrounding the neighborhood that still are contributing.
Yeah, okay, that was my memory as well.
That's what I thought. To my knowledge, absolutely no communication has gone out to any home outside of the Frostwoods Homes Association boundaries.
Okay,
So if that is suddenly going to happen, I think that there's a level of communication that this commission would need to undertake. Frostwoods Homes Association would not be interested in communicating with neighbors outside of the boundary about something like that. That just wouldn't be appropriate for the
Yeah.
association. So
I think it'd be appropriate for some notifications to come from the city. We can send out some mailings over the next few months that just say, let them know about the Frostwoods Homes Association vote, and that the city's previous survey showed their home as contributing, which would maybe make their home part of this historic district, and explain the benefits of that. There really are no downsides.
there are no downsides,
I'm gonna say pros and cons.
but convincing everybody of that can be an issue.
So I think that it might be worthwhile talking to Jason and Elizabeth before you do that and make sure that, because if it's somebody doing the nomination and they don't end up including those homes, we could be alerting them to something that's not even going to be an issue. I would talk to Jason and Elizabeth and just find out, even though those homes were surveyed, they could be just individual homes. I don't know. Maybe, because maybe the Mead and Hunt was not aware that they weren't actually in our boundary.
Yeah. Yep, that's a great idea. I will double check with them. They are excited about this, that we're moving forward. And
I did have one question. You were saying this was different. Is this different than the full CLG grant for the year? Because you were saying the full application's due in December, but this one's due in August.
So this is just our letter of intent to submit an application. So the letter of intent is
okay.
due in August. And then the application will be due in December. So the letter of intent should include this plus anything else we.
That's
are
what
hoping
was,
to fund. Yeah.
that's what my question was gonna be, yeah. Do we have other intent of doing other properties along with the district in order to get that full grant?
Yeah, that would be something we should discuss, I'm thinking there are other properties identified in that architectural survey, right? That we could maybe think about, and then Frank Alice House, potentially, that's on the agenda to discuss next. I don't know if there's opportunity there. Yeah, anything else other comments about the Crosswoods Historic District? Okay.
All right. Number 6B, discussion of Frank Ellis House, National Register eligibility.
I want to start with this by apologizing to the commission for our last meeting. I know this kind of came up during a staff update, and we got a little off track from there because we had just conflicting information, and we kind of dove into a conversation that I don't think we were ready to have yet. And I didn't give you the materials. So those materials are included in this month's packet. So context here is that the Rick Bernstein, former member, and Wes Block, who's on the San Damiano Steering Committee, have been working on a report and working with the Wisconsin Historical Society to explore if Frank Alice House could be eligible for the National Register if certain changes were made to restore its historic nature. So they're looking at 3 restoration projects, which would be removing the transite siding to reveal the original clapboard siding underneath, and then removing the sleeping porch, the second story sleeping porch, and then restoring the front facade. So the San Damiano Steering Committee kind of discussed the benefits of knowing this information at their last meeting, just that, if the house is to remain and they want to pursue those restorations, it's going to cost a lot of money. And if the house is eligible for the National Register, it'd be eligible for up to potentially 40% in tax credits. So it'd make those restoration projects, a lot more financially feasible. So there's a lot of benefit in knowing this information. I think we just had some confusion over, whose role is it to pursue this? The San Damiano Steering Committee is already working with WHS to see if we can get to that information and to see if it's basically worth doing an application to see if it's eligible for the National Register if those changes were made. So the city had previously submitted an application back in 2007 that was denied because of those 3 elements that they're exploring right now.
I was on that tour with the SHPO, if you'd like
Okay.
my input at all. And I will also be attending. West has invited a member from Findorf to come look at what it would take to do some of these changes. The sleeping porch is not one of those changes.
Okay.
The sleeping porch is fine.
Oh, it is. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it was actually put on at a date early enough that it would not be an issue. The main thing that the SHPO would like to see in order to be looking at this again is to have that front addition taken off. It is obvious where that addition is from, roof to foundation. It's all the way in the basement. So the main facade is what they're looking at, but this does not mean it would be eligible. This is just to have them come back out and say, yes, it might be worth pursuing.
Oh,
So I don't want to get everyone's hopes up and saying that this is an eligible property.
right.
It would need a significant amount of work done and the demolition of the whole front facade. So I think meeting with Wes and the guy from Findorf in 2 weeks will give us a little bit of estimate of what the Friends group would have to fundraise. I think that right now for the Landmarks Commission, we do not need to do any kind of action because this is the steering committee working on it and Wes coming up with what it would take for funds
Hmm,
for the steering committee and part of that master planning process. And, you know, there obviously is still not a master plan until December. So whether or not that property stays or not. And they still need to come to us as well for any of this stuff. But that's some of the update I have for it.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I had reached out to Wes for the most recent updates, but had not heard from him yet. So,
Okay, yeah, we do have a schedule, June 26th for meeting with person from Findorf.
so the SHPO could say, yes, here are the changes that you could make, which might.
So
Yeah.
the SHPO is
Yeah.
the SHPO is the ultimate signer, but there is a review board of 12 people that say yes or no. So, and it goes through a very long review process,
I bet,
as we know.
yeah. So worst case scenario, a lot of work could be done and still it would not be approved. Yeah,
Worst case.
worst case scenario, right, which is not, yeah. I suppose in that meeting that you mentioned coming up, there might be, Rebecca, do you know whether the meeting with SHPO is something that, you know, could at least provide like, what are the odds? What are our chances? Is this like favorable? Does it look like probably it would be, you know, or?
It's really tough. Like they, the reviewer and Dinah is the SHPO, Dinah Penkunas. They were out there on site with us and, you know, we just walked the entire inside, outside of the property and what it would take to at least consider it. I think we just need to be concerned is if the steering committee comes to us and says, we would like to pursue this, do we want to get a grant to pursue this? Because do we want to get a grant to pursue something that could possibly say no?
Right.
You know, we have all this work done and it's not worth our time. I think that's where we want to just be careful.
So Rebecca, what I'm hearing for you is there's really nothing for us to do at this moment because the Friends group is handling it. However, if the Friends group were to come to us, then there might be something for us to do. And maybe one of those things we potentially could get engaged in would be grant writing.
Correct.
But the Friends group would not be grant writing.
They could.
Oh, okay, sure.
Sure. I would assume they would want the CLG grant.
Yeah.
For nominating it.
Makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Really helpful. I wouldn't have guessed the sleeping. I wouldn't have guessed the sleeping thing would be all right. I've always looked
It
at
actually,
that's kind of, it looks like a second thought, you know, kind of.
it was a second thought back in the 1920s.
Right.
Yeah. And that front addition, in case you don't know, I think we determined that front addition was to put bathrooms in the house. That is where the bathrooms are located.
Oh, wow. Because when it was very first built,
No bathrooms.
no bathrooms. Yeah, I guess, yeah. All
Not
right.
the best place, but
All right, wonderful. Is there anything more, Thor, to say about this agenda item?
I have nothing else.
Okay, well then let's go on to number 6, letter C, discussion of joining the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions.
Yeah, so I thought we could have a discussion here. The Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions is just an organization that provides support and resources and networking opportunities and discussion opportunities for local preservation commissions like ours. There's an annual fee of $42 and it would give all of us just access to these resources and savings on their annual conference, which has already passed for this year, but that would be like next April, I think. So I included kind of just their about page in the meeting packet, if you've had a chance to look at that. Really, you know, there is money in the budget for it. Probably we'd take it out of the book fund, you know, which still has like $1,600 there. And then ongoing, it might be worth having a discussion about, we haven't allocated supplies budget as a commission, which we're not really using, you know, physical materials and supplies that often. Maybe, you know, next year in the upcoming budget, we can kind of rework that as supplies and resources, which this could be part of. So for comparison, there's also the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, which is a national organization. I've attended a couple webinars recently, which the planning department paid for, and I've got another one coming up in June. So Doug and I have been talking about just me joining that as an individual member for the next year, and which would also, you know, give me access to resources and then networking and technical support and webinars. But there's also an opportunity for us to join as a city for $100, which would give all the commission members and the landmark preservation staff, which I think would be Doug and I essentially, to you know, access to those resources. So that's $100. I think Doug and I discussed it would make more sense to maybe wait until next year to do that, to join as a city and just have me join as an individual member this year. But I wanted to throw that out there. So really the decision today and discussion is if we want to join the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions.
Or are there any reasons why we wouldn't want to join?
It's just the expense, really. Yeah,
Just the cost.
there's not going to be any reporting that we have to do, and it won't add any you know, burden to staff or time resources.
Okay, and then so I'm guessing this commission has been around a while. And this commission has been around a while. Why aren't we members already?
That's a good question.
Okay,
Isn't
I don't know.
there a publication to it? Maybe not nowadays, but I thought there was. That came with the membership, but maybe now it's all online.
It might just be online now. On their website, they have a link for members only resources
Right.
and can't access that yet, but from that, it seems like it might be access to kind of like a discussion board and
Right.
some of those publications.
so are you just looking for discussion right now, or do you want us to say, please join? Yeah.
John, that was my question also.
Okay.
The words out of my mouth, because the agenda technically does not say discussion and action or discussion and possible action. So there would need to be, if action was, if there was an interest to take action, we would need a motion to take this item out of order and take a vote. Otherwise, we can take a vote the next time we meet and have it like, and two-step the process. First, you talk about it and you
Mhm.
get back and vote on it, which is pretty common. If this body feels that there's really no downside, cost is very low, and we would benefit from it, I would support taking it out of act or taking it out of order and asking for a motion to take a vote.
I would second that if we're allowed to.
I think it's okay.
And are you allowed to make a recommendation?
Yeah,
I mean, based on your,
yeah. Mhm.
so you're recommending we would do this?
I would recommend that it be, yeah,
Okay.
it would, I think I see an overall net benefit.
For $42.
Yeah,
And Thor, is the recommendation that for this year or for the remainder of 2023, you would be the sole member, and we would have the $40 a year fee?
that's for the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions.
okay, sorry.
This one, we'd be joining as a city.
Oh, we would, okay.
Yep.
And that would be the $100 fee.
42.
This one would be $42.
What am I-
The National Alliance, if we decide to pursue that next year, that would be $100.
Got it.
We'll see. I'll be an individual member this year and I can report out on the benefit and the experience. We can
Got
make
it.
a decision in 2024.
Thank you for that. Okay. So is there a motion to take this out of order and take a vote?
I think we had a motion and a
Get a
second.
motion
Yeah.
from?
from Jennifer.
Now we're ready to vote.
Perfect. Sorry, my ears
No,
on
it's
the remote. So in that case, all in favor of the Monona City of Monona Landmarks Commission becoming a member? Say aye.
I,
Opposed? Motion passes. There you go.
Excellent. I will get that in motion, and I don't know how access credentials will work, but I'll send out an email to the commission.
Mhm. Very good, very good. Laura, how did you first learn about the Wisconsin Association? I think you'd already been familiar with the National Association, yeah?
Yep, I had been familiar with the National Association, but Rebecca actually shared this opportunity with us, and Doug and I sat down to discuss and determined there was plenty of money in the budget for it, so.
We might need to revote now.
Fantastic, thank you.
I totally encourage every commission member, when you find resources like that, send them my way.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I know people all over.
Do they have
All right, in that case, let's go to number 6, letter D, staff updates. Sub I, Historic Preservation Month recap. A lot of great work was done, and I asked Laura to just remind us of all the good stuff that had been happening.
Yeah, so we had the library display, which I reached out to the library to see if they had stats on how many of the books were checked out and how often. I didn't get those yet. I don't know if they actually do track those stats, so there might be privacy concerns there. But at the library display, we also had our the landmarks book for sale, and we had our map that was printed. We did have 3 sales for the landmarks book, which I think that's more than we've had the past couple of years.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yep. They were on sale for $15. I think it might be worth discussing whether or not we should adjust that price.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that money's already spent. We're not trying, there's no need to recoup all that expense. That was a long time ago. And we have about 300 copies left. So
Seriously, let's go over it. It's not raised.
yeah, unless if it's maybe it becomes an exclusive item.
I was gonna say, raise it to 30 and buy one, get one free.
Marketing, yeah.
Buy one for a neighbor.
You know, maybe we do some marketing around Christmas time. Who knows? That could be a nice little gift, really.
Yeah. I
But
think
anyway, not to interrupt your report. Go continue. I know there was a lot more that was done.
yeah, we had the newsletter submissions in April and May, and then the new web pages for the international style homes, which John and Rick had created, and then for the National Register listings throughout the city. So those are live. Those were advertised for a brief period on the front page of the city website and in the newsletters. So that's really it. We had discussed the landmark marker cleaning as part of Historic Preservation Month, but we decided to push that off because the timeline just didn't work. So that's ready to move forward whenever. I think we had about 4 or 5 volunteers from the last meeting. We just have to find a date that works with Craig Deller. So
Fantastic.
yeah, I think that's all I have for Historic Preservation Month.
Thank you for so much work that was done. And thanks to some folks in the room here who lent a hand with proofreading and just bringing things to our attention and just minor corrections. I was very, very helpful in that too. I don't know what has been done in previous years for this month of the year, but I just have the sense that we did a little bit more than is typical. Is that accurate to say?
I think it's accurate that each year we do a little bit more.
A little bit, yeah, okay, great. Really nice, really nice. All right, fantastic. Also under staff updates, we have that National Register nomination update with 2 items to discuss, the Willard and Fern Tompkins House and the draft landmark.
Yep, so Elizabeth Hilton at WHS let me know that the Willard and Fern Tompkins House, 110 Henua Circle, will be added to the August agenda for the review board. So we'll be getting the 60-day notice about that pretty soon. And you know, it could be added to the state register by August and then passed along to the National Park Service for consideration for the National Register by then as well. So it's exciting that that's moving forward. And the draft landmark map that we had reviewed at the last couple of meetings has been finalized and printed. We made the recommended changes at the last meeting and 100 copies were printed. They've been distributed. The regular sites, the library, City Hall, the Senior Center was very excited to receive them. The Community Center, and then the Dean House as well. Took about a couple dozen copies. So I encourage everyone to take one home with you. And if you have any feedback, let me know. We kind of kept it simple with this first printing. If we want, you know, maybe a higher card stock kind of material or a glossier finish next time, just let me know. It was, I think this was like $100 for 100 copies.
That was my next question. It is just really lovely. It just looks fantastic. I really enjoy it looking at
Can
it.
you put one in Brian's mailbox for me?
Yep.
Since I'm not there.
Great idea. Yeah, no, it's great. I brought one to the last city council meeting and everybody was like, oh yeah, I already saw it. I'm like, well, all right then. They're like, yeah, they're all over town. I'm like, oh, really? They are? Like, yeah. All right, yeah. That's really nice. And soon to need updates, right? I mean, it's you print it and then the next thing you know, there's another thing on to be added, right?
Exactly. That's why we only printed 100.
Yeah, right.
And change, right. Yep, we'll have to add the Tompkins House.
Right.
Probably.
Exactly.
We'll
Maybe,
see,
hopefully,
but,
yeah.
I don't wanna jinx us, but maybe, yeah.
Right. And then Thor, the next item under staff updates would be the updates slash discussion on Springhaven Pagoda and Frank
Yeah,
House.
so.
And I think this is just a standing agenda item, right? There's nothing.
Yeah,
more than- Yeah,
there's really no discussion here
Right.
today. I don't anticipate one. I don't have any further updates on the Frank Alice House.
mhm,
Springhaven Pagoda, I've been in touch with Craig Deller
mhm.
a couple times over the last few months, and he has told me that he's working on that treatment proposal. So
Okay,
he didn't give me a timeline. I'll keep pestering him. He's a little hard to get in touch with, and I only have email for him. So I'll be pestering him a lot, and I'm hoping he can join us at a July or August meeting to kind of give us an update and maybe present something. My expectation, which is that he will just be providing kind of a 2 or 3 page document, essentially, that is a rough, bullet point list of a treatment proposal, essentially, similar to what he gave us for the marker cleaning. Just this is more intensive than that, so it'll be a little longer. So I'm trying to make sure he's not investing too many resources into this, since he's, doing it because he's interested, and we didn't hire him to do this.
Right, that was going to be my question, is he's not under the expectation that he's going to be hired just because he's doing this.
Right, I've made that clear that, the price tag on this is going to be high enough that this, and just because we'll want to do our due diligence, that this will go out for bid afterwards, so that there's, we might have to go with a different option at some point, but we're just looking for this proposal, just kind of start the conversation so that we can explore if it's even feasible to move forward with kind of this conservator-led approach.
Tor, do you know the amount that causes us not to go up to bid?
Yeah, I think it is like yeah. 25,000, we have to go out for bid. But I think just because of the nature of this, as a local landmark, even if it was less than that, I think it'd be wise to still go out for bid.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a tough spot. I'm guessing he's hopeful that he's gonna do the work. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing this
Yeah.
free work.
Mhm.
And on the other hand, he may know too much information. You
Yeah,
know, it's one of those kind of tough situations.
Yeah.
Okay,
but yeah, that's been made clear with him.
Okay. Thank you. How about the Charles Fix House at 4659 Tony Watha Trail?
Yeah, so this is one of our local landmarks, 4659 Toniawatha Trail. The property owners right now are considering a new boathouse. And the designs that they had submitted to the planning department required a variance. So we've been in touch with our legal counsel, who recommended that if they decide to move forward with this, that it goes to the zoning board of appeals for a variance first,
Mhm.
before it would come to landmarks for a certificate of appropriateness. And we're also exploring whether or not that's even necessary, considering it's just the boathouse, and nothing to the primary structure. So
It's
we
not
had-
attached, so.
Right, so I think we're gonna have to look at the original proclamation for designating it a landmark to see if it lists the property or just the home
Correct.
structure.
Because the boathouse could have been years later.
Yeah, and I think it was, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
I think we do need to look at our ordinance though, just because it's not the actual building, it still needs. It's still on the property and next to the building, so it will affect the aesthetic of that.
yep,
It should be appropriately, designed.
yeah, it might, I don't think it'd be visible from the road.
But there are boats on the water.
From the lake, it will be, yeah.
Yeah, so many of those houses, that's where the best view is really, from the water.
Yeah.
Called the Golden
This was
Street.
one of the original landmarks, so I think sometime in the 1970s, the first like 13 or 14 landmarks.
and the owners are different.
They're
Yeah,
new.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's fairly new property owners.
Yeah, I believe Coyle was first. Coyle family.
Yeah, we'd have to look at that specific house. I know when we looked at the Frank Alice house, it was just the house, and
Mhm.
nothing around it.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I think it
it'll
is too,
depend on
because when my mom tore down the garage, they didn't say we didn't have to come to landmarks because we tore the garage down.
Okay.
We
You know what
did,
I'm saying?
we did do a lot of paperwork for, we did put in together a lot of folders. We
Mhm.
started to do that prior to COVID, I think. For a lot of our landmarks, so that there was a paper trail of why they are important.
Mm.
I don't know if we got to the Fix House yet or not.
No, we had,
well, we had started that also, but we had never submitted, my recollection with the Frank Alice houses, we had never submitted to council, so.
Frank
Oh.
Alice, I think we didn't do any of the property, we just
Okay.
and I
Yeah.
believe the house was in sale process when we were doing that.
Mm.
Frank Alice?
No, the fix home.
Oh,
I think they were thinking about selling it, and so we kind of, yeah. Seemed like we kind of just put it on the back burner because it was for sale. Or being transitioned to sale.
Yep, so stay tuned there.
I have a question to Rebecca. You mentioned something about work that had been started and maybe is not complete?
correct.
Is that something we should be working to complete?
I've already spoken with Doug and Thor about like some of
Okay.
the things that we could go back to that we haven't finished working on, because we started to put together nomination forms and packets of information on our landmarks individually that are
Mhm.
already landmarks, so that we
Mhm.
had some reason why they're landmarks.
Yeah.
And we didn't, I don't remember how many we got through.
Like about 3.
we were doing one per meeting.
Yeah, one per meeting.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was actually thinking about that the other day, but yeah.
It does sound like a worthwhile job, but a time consuming one. Yeah.
Just more documentation.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
and for anybody who wasn't part of that process, our thoughts on it were when somebody comes and asks, needs a certificate of appropriateness from us,
Right,
we need something to look at. We
right.
need some kind of rubric to judge the house by, to
Mhm.
know if we should issue it or not. And so we had been hoping to create the paperwork that would allow us to make those, us and future commission
Mhm.
members to make those decisions accurately.
Just for your knowledge, Teresa, before we started that process, things are just a landmark in Monona because someone put a boulder there. That's why we started that process.
Mhm.
Well, is this something folks would want to start up again and sort of pick up where we left off? Maybe we put something on the next agenda just to take a look at what's been done so far and get a
we could-
refamiliarization.
We could put that under staff requests.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Sounds fair.
Noted.
All right, fantastic. So that takes us then to National Alliance of Preservation Commission Preservation Planning webinar.
Yeah, I think this is a good segue as well. So back in
That was a while
April,
ago.
I attended
Yeah.
a preservation planning webinar from the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions.
Mhm.
And it was a really successful webinar, so they ended up releasing a part 2, all on equity and engagement and diversity in preservation planning. So the webinar is really just focused on best practices and creating kind of a strategic planning framework for identifying priorities for your community in terms of preservation and historic, in creating new landmarks and preserving your current landmarks. And some really helpful case studies from all over the country, including from Heather Bailey, who is the City of Madison's historic preservation planner. So it was a really helpful webinar, and I think it is relevant to the commission because I'm getting, based on that last conversation and based on previous conversations, I think there is an appetite for maybe developing some kind of strategic framework and maybe even a full preservation plan. The 2018 architectural survey, and it was the groundwork for doing that. And me and Hunt identified a couple properties throughout the city that have historic character and significance that we could explore landmarking and work with those property owners. So I think some of the resources shared in that webinar will be helpful if the commission does want to pursue that kind of framework or planning, and if that's worthwhile. So, yeah, Rebecca.
We do have a preservation plan. It's part of the city's comprehensive plan. I think that's from 2016. And so it's probably ready to be updated. So that is something that we could pull from.
Yeah, great point. And we are required by state law to update our comprehensive plan every 10 years. So we need to have a new one by 2026. And it's a long process to update that. So we're likely going to start that process within the next year or so. So I think it would be helpful for the commission to have those discussions again, whether it's a standalone plan or included in the comprehensive plan update.
Yeah, I agree. And we helped the city planner at the time write the preservation plan, just for your information. But yeah, it would be a discussion of if we want to separate it.
Yep, and then I'll be attending another webinar upcoming on the 29th of June. That is best practices for effective local commissions. So hopefully I'll have some good stuff to report out there.
You'll have some best
Yep,
practices.
Yep.
Thor, I have two comments or maybe questions. The city's preservation plan, could that be included in our next meetings packet and just, just so that everyone is, put some intention behind, looking through that and perhaps even starting to identify areas that we could update and go through it, with an eye or with a thought on the overall comprehensive plan and how those relate to one another. Two, the webinars you attended, I know you spoke really favorably of them when you and I spoke. And I think maybe at the time I asked you if the recording was available. I can't recall. I'd love to
They're
watch.
available to members. I'm a member. I have the slideshow if you'd like me to share it with you.
Is it a simple enough slideshow that we put it in a meeting packet, or is it crazy long?
It is 56 pages.
Yeah,
I'll let you use your judgment. It sounded like,
I took notes. I could maybe share that. I could clean that.
yeah,
up if you'd
would you
like.
mind? I just feel like it had a lot of great information,
Really good. Yeah.
I'll
clean up my notes. How's that?
That sounds great. And then when we meet in July, that'd be really nice too. Already our July agenda is too long, I can tell. Lots
Yeah,
of stuff going on.
I have to spread it out.
We might have to spread it out, yeah. All right, wonderful. And then just another standing agenda item is just the updates and discussion on diversity, equity, inclusion. I will start by saying that at our last, so I've said it a number of times that that is one of the committees I'm appointed to, the committee that would implement the plan that the previous committee came up with. And what we've done right now is we've divided into subgroups or work groups. The group that I'm a part of is the housing group. We're going to explore some opportunities the city might have for updating some of its housing, I don't know, procedures, ordinances, whatever they may be called. Other groups are exploring communication, and other groups are exploring I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. There were 3 groups and I've just one out of my head. If I think of it, I'll mention it. So that's DEI. And then for sustainability, Thor and I also are part of the sustainability committee, and we've been making some, I think, wonderful work has happened in the past couple of months. He and I have been meeting with each department leader, department head, and we have not met with all, but with a few, and and then ultimately we met with all leaders at one of the standing Monday morning leadership meetings. And the purpose of the meeting was simply to say, Monona has a sustainability plan. It was adopted in 2015. Here's what's been done on that so far. Here's where we were, here's where we are. And then in that time that the plan was adopted, there were a lot of strategies and a lot of work that was being tracked toward the, satisfying of the recommended actions. And eventually the Department of Natural Resources came up with its own tracking tool, which is part of the Green Tier Legacy Community Program, which Monona is a part of that program. And for about the past 3 years, I want to say, Brad Bruin from the Department of Public Works, and now Thor will join him in submitting Monona's annual plan. And in filling out that report, so many of the strategies from our own sustainability plan are also, the boxes are being checked on that. So there's a lot of overlap between the 2 plans. The benefit of this new tool is that it also includes a section on equity, which is really, in my opinion and opinion of many, it's just a necessary aspect of sustainability. The Monona plan did not include a section like that. So the end decision is sort of that we've got this new tool, we've had it for a few years. it satisfies our own plan and the objectives, and it even goes a little further. The reporting is dynamic, it's online. The metrics are measurable, reportable, something that we just didn't really have, as we didn't really do it as well as they've done it. And so moving forward, the idea is that we might sort of just, you look to that plan, the DNR tool, instead of our old legacy sustainability tool, which is what I believe many communities have done. And I think just by having that meeting with city leaders and just by, you know, explaining, here's where we are, here's how we got here, here's where we're going. People had so many positive comments. I mean, everybody wants to do the right thing. Everybody wants to be a part of it. Everybody already is doing a lot of work to make our community more, you know, sustainable, which also includes financial sustainability. Oftentimes environmental initiatives save you money in the long run. So we've already heard back from a few departments that are very, you know, engaged already. And if you subscribe to the My Monona e-newsletter, I don't know if you do that, but this month we're actually going to feature an article about something the Department of Public Works has been doing, which really has a very heavy environmental benefit to it, and as well as a financial benefit. So the Sustainability Committee is going to be seeking out that work that's already being done and try to bring it more into, you know, celebrate it and communicate it more with the community, which perhaps just wasn't happening as much. So that's my very long sustainability update.
Can I just, since
Yeah.
we're talking about those two things, I think these two relate, the housing.
Yeah.
That you're looking into, and sustainability.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more talk about preservation and sustainability coming together and working towards climate change.
Mhm.
And I wonder if the Sustainability and Landmarks Committee can somehow come together to look at our current Monona housing building stock. And maybe there's a lot in the survey. I haven't looked at it in a long time. You know, there's a lot in the Crossroads, obviously, but I bring this up just noticing how many houses in Monona are being torn down, just being rebuilt to be
Mhm.
bigger and bigger. And the housing, you know, the building sector itself is a large part of our carbon emissions. So I'm wondering if sustainability would be interested in looking at some of that.
This has come up before. You've actually mentioned it, I think, Rebecca, about, you know, historic preservation and sustainability and how that's really gaining traction. Would you mind sharing with me after the meeting, just sending me a link to whatever you have? If you
Sure.
have it at the top
Sure,
of
I
your
can
head.
find some
Yeah.
information. for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I
I
mean,
feel like we
I
share
don't
that
want you
one.
to do, just if you have it off the top of your head, I don't want you to do too much work, but yeah.
I know, I'm on vacation.
You're on vacation?
I know.
All right. Is there anyone else that has anything they'd like to share about DEIB or sustainability, which the two really are both sides of the same coin sometimes? No? All right, fantastic. In that case, final item on the agenda, Landmarks Commission request for city staff. Are there any? Any that we haven't already said? All right, hearing none, the next item is just a notice of our upcoming meeting, July 12th. And August 9th. So get this on your calendars, same place, same time. And that brings us to the end of our time together. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Becca, seconded. Fantastic. All in favor?
Bye.
Yay.
Good to
Passes.
see you.
Yeah.
Rebecca, every day in your life is a vacation. Just keep that in mind.
Really?
I had that.
I'm busy.